station.
Marcus Fuller from the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com covering a college basketball joins 9 to noon about an hour from now. And speaking of said Strib and StarTribune.com, Ben Goessling, the scribe, joins 9 to noon. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. These are new microphones.
Yeah, they're nice, aren't they?
They sound very nice. They sound different in my ears, too. Very fancy.
You got some Lou Rawls, Barry White, Isaac Hayes to you right now on that microphone, man.
Hey, if the microphone works for that, we'll take it.
Follow me on this, okay? Because of I have all your albums. I read all your tweets. I read all your stories. I do my best to follow the podcasting and stuff like that. But, you and other scribes, but you in particular with the Star. You've just been on it, for the last week and change, man. It just looks like it's been nonstop, just on that grind. Nonstop. So follow me with this.
Luka Garza?
All right, 3-2. I learned at church that when a severe storm hits, there's a big difference between cows and bison. Okay?
Okay.
Cows run away from the severe storm and eventually get slammed, while bison run headfirst into the storm with ferocity and fearlessness, persevere, and are home and cooled out more quickly than the cows. They took it on head on.
Okay.
You with me?
Yep.
So I ask, from Cousins leaving to Jonah Williams arriving with Shaq Griffin in there and Aaron Jones and that whirlwind in the middle, has this signing storm over the last week felt like it engulfed you like a cow, or did you channel your inner bison and attack it head first, being like, come on, that's all you got? Something every 15 minutes? Come on, give me more.
It's probably more bison than cow because you could see this coming for a while, and I will throw the bison in there thing for a shout out to my friends in Fargo. My wife is a Fargo native, so shout out North Dakota State Bison.
Hold on, 740 The Fan. We love you. 740 The Fan Radio Network. It's the Scribe, and good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it's been more of that because you could see that this was going to be we've had some busy off seasons in my 12 years on the beat. This one, I think you could see for a while was going to be maybe the busiest. I mean, just kind of charting the news out and all of the things that they had coming, all of the decisions they had to make. It was just like, okay, when you start with a quarterback at the top of it, that's always going to be busy. But this is like a two-pronged quarterback thing because you have the Cousins thing, and then you have who's next if it's not Cousins or even if it is Cousins. So there's that. There's decisions to make on Hunter. There's decisions on the defense. There's still more coming with when they do the JJ extension. They've got to do Darisaw at some point, maybe not this year, but there's all of this business that's on the table for them and just kind of getting ready for the offseason. I was telling my bosses, like, this one is going to be a doozy. I mean, you could see the forecast, kind of the clouds kind of gathering, like, this is going to be a really busy offseason. So you kind of just make peace with it and say, okay, this is going to be part of it.
We discussed this at the Combine. It's like, with all the Cuz buzz and the rookie quarterbacks and everything, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is like, what? Not going to do anything here? Okay. It's like there were so many ballyhooed topics. Mm-hmm. I think the way you put it, or I put it to you, was like, nobody's discussing Daniil. We kind of knew it was a foregone conclusion that he would leave. All right, but I never thought Jonathan Grenard was going to be the replacement. I saw an inside linebacker coming, but I didn't think it would be Cashman and Van Ginkel. And, then Dan Feeney from Under the Cover of Darkness, Jonah Williams Monday, Shaq Griffin yesterday. I mean, that it's coming from all over the place on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And very impressive that you saw that coming. I didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just in terms of the amount of news of things they had to do internally, I don't know that I would say I saw this coming in terms of how many people they've signed, but very clearly, I mean, you could see this from last year a little bit, at least financially, that when they cut Kendricks, when they cut Thielen, when they got rid of Dalvin Cook, a lot of the decisions they made, they had the option to push money down the road, and they said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to take the hits now so that our decks are clear for next year. And I think even where they went with Cousins probably is a second kind of piece of that, in the sense that they were very interested in kind of having the books cleared of all of this. Can you pull a rabbit out of a hat, Rob Brzezinski kind of stuff they've had to do for the last 5 or 6 years. And let's see what it looks like when we have the money to go do some of the things that we want to do. And this, I think, in that sense, is only a precursor, because they're going to have money to spend for a while. And I would expect they're going to be very active in 25 in free agency and probably even beyond that. So I think they were kind of planning for this, at least to get the books clear and to get the flexibility back that they wanted. So in that sense, this is kind of a continuation of what they did last year. And I think the result of it is them being able to do a lot more of what they want to do in free agency. And you got to get the quarterback right for all of it to work. But that's the upside of it if all of that does come together.
This kind of feels like with this spending spree when I got my first credit card. And I just didn't know how much things cost at the time. So I'm assuming Goessling and company are better with that than I am. But how long do you think it's going to take before the dust settles and we kind of actually know what the cap situation looks like? Because I saw, and I think you and everybody's kind of jumped on, so we kind of know what Jonathan Grenard's deal looks like.
Yep.
It's like 5 and change, maybe his 2024 cap number and stuff.
Yep.
But how long does that typically take? Because I know whenever they have to officially be compliant and everything's finalized and pushed through and such. But, I keep trying to figure out, okay, well, they, spot rack and over the cap, have them at this number. Well, we just, Shaq Griffin up to $6 million. Well, how much, what does that look like in 2024? Void years galore, et cetera. Do you know how long you're expecting maybe before we truly have a good picture of what the cap looks like this year and maybe then kind of finalize what that fat number in 2025 might look like?
Yeah, I think it's a few days before the dust kind of settles, when all of the numbers come in and you see all of the details of things beyond kind of that sticker price that gets leaked out when everybody signs. I mean, obviously they know what it is, and you can't do deals. Teams cannot do deals that put them over the cap. Like the NFL will not approve things that put a team over the cap. So whatever the official number is at this point, and I think it's 7 figures at this point. It's not 8 in terms of how much they have left, but they're not over the cap. I mean, they have all of those numbers done. The NFL has them all done. It's just waiting for the rest of the public to kind of find out what they are. The thing that places like over the cap don't have yet, because my understanding from my sources is it hasn't kind of gone through the NFL Players Association system, which is where a lot of people get their information. The Harrison Smith restructure is going to save them a little bit of money as well. So you've got that. You've got a few of these other deals they've done. They might be in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 million left, but until we see all of those things come through and hit, it's a little hard to say for sure. I think that's a general range. And Rob Brzezinski, if you're listening and I'm wrong, let me know. But I think that's about where they're at this point.
How hot do you anticipate the Atlanta and Cousins tampering bit may become?
I'm very interested to see where this goes, because he kind of said the quiet part out loud in his press conference.
And he might have lied. I mean, I think it was, Florio just laid it out. Like he started to say him and athletic Cousins, an athletic trainer guy, certified athletic trainer guy, met.
Yeah,
but he stopped and then called or something. So I mean, this may have a digital trail that might be a little nasty.
Well, that would be the concern. I mean, met in person is probably actually better for them than called, because called has a footprint. So I mean, it's like like all the President's Men, where you got to put the can on the deck when you want to meet with the guy in the garage at 6 a.m. and mark the can if you can make it there, all this kind of stuff if you want to get away with it. In this day and age, it is really tough, because it wouldn't seem like it'd be that hard to check text messages, to check phone records, to just get the digital trail of all of this stuff and figure it out. And the thing I think they have to determine is, were conversations with Kirk Cousins being had at the direction of Terry Fontenot, at the direction of Arthur Blank? How high up did it go? Were people just contacting him because they knew it was almost done, or were they being told to do it? Did they have medical records early? I mean, I think that would be a pertinent question to this whole thing as well. So if there is a footprint, like I think there could be, of tampering, just because these things typically have digital records to them, it would seem very possible that the Falcons will be penalized for it. I don't know what pick. I don't know where that'll end up. I think typically they just forfeit picks. I don't think those picks are coming to the Vikings necessarily. But if they were told you have to forfeit a first-round pick, I mean, that helps the Vikings too, in the sense that now it's not 11-23, it's 10-22.
Right.
So there are a lot of tentacles to that thing yet that could be very, very interesting.
All right. Well, first time you and I have chatted with Nordo. It's 11-23, you say, after that Ballyhoo Texans bit early Friday. What I'm just going to open it up for you, man. What do you think Kwesi and or crew have up their proverbial sleeves?
I think this is to go get a quarterback. Mm-hmm. I would be very surprised if plan A is not, let's take these picks, and if we need to move up to get our guy, let's do it. Now, if they feel like somebody's going to fall to them, great. Then you take that guy at 11, and you have 23 to go do something else with it. But I don't think that's why they made this deal. And you can look at what they gave up, and if it's just for the 23rd pick, you could say, well, they gave up a lot to get it. But if they are taking 11 and 23 and say, we're going to move up to 3 or 4, you have to have a trading partner to do it. But those picks should get you at least in the conversation to do that. Probably have to throw in something else, especially if you're moving up to 3. Maybe you have to throw in another first rounder. But you're not giving up years worth of first round picks to get up that high in the draft. And I think this is absolutely, let's have the ammo to go get the guy we want. I think that has been the plan. I don't think they are going to sit there and say, well, let's just sit back and see who falls to us, and whoever that is will be happy with it. I think it's
best available.
Let's get our guy. I don't think best available is the plan. I think it's let's go get our guy and do what we have to do to get there.
All right. Well, somebody you know well, Patriot scribe Chad Graff with The Athletic.
Yep.
He was on 9 to noon yesterday, and he laid it out as a 30% chance New England would at least consider relatively strongly trading 3 to the Vikings. All right. Now, Mike Florio, PFT, he was talking about action zones in Arizona and the LA Chargers, action zones. But he also said don't rule out New England. So, I just can't fathom how Gerard Mayo would get that job post Belichick and they would not take a quarterback.
Yeah.
I can't ponder that.
No,
it's ridiculous, I think.
There. Yeah,
always.
I think
buy your furniture at Gabbert's.
Yeah, you could put that one in the locker.
There you
go. Who else was in that class other than Cam Newton?
I'm craving a big / Cam Newton.
There you go. There you go. Well, I think we got most of the key players in
All
that
right,
one.
3-2.
I think the Patriots, I agree. I think the Patriots have every reason to take a quarterback there. So it makes it so that the Commanders probably take one and the Patriots take one. And then you're talking about QB4. That does make it difficult.
Yes.
There are ways, I think, though, to make it go from 30% to something higher. I mean, you may have to make them the Godfather offer and say, let's throw in another first-round pick.
But you can't do more. I mean, you can't do much more than that. 11-23 first next year.
Yeah, that's probably what it would take. And maybe you throw in, I don't know, some other mid-round pick. I guess. I think 11-23 and a first-round pick next year is fair compensation for that spot. They would certainly have to decide, we are passing on the opportunity to take who we want, and we're going to be okay with whoever may still be there at 11. Or maybe they move back up. I suppose they could always come back and do that. I mean, there's machinations to do it. But, I think that is the hurdle they'd have to get through. And then if it's not them, I think Arizona at 4 makes some sense. But then you're possibly getting QB4 at that point. So
which I'd be fine with.
Yeah, if it's J.J. McCarthy there, I think people would probably be okay with that. I have thought Drake May makes the most sense for them, and I know they like Drake May a lot. I haven't done enough triangulating yet on what they think of J.J. McCarthy to have a full sense of it there. But they are spending time with him and have spent time with him. They spent time with him at the combine, and they are going to do a private workout with him later this week. So there is certainly going to be enough time for them to get all of the information they want on him as well.
And we can, sarcastically joke or prod or tease about the Josh McCown hiring.
Yeah.
Like we did at the combine with Coach Drake May in when he was a high schooler in Charlotte. Old school KFAN fans would appreciate this. It's like the new version that's akin to hey, have you heard Terrell Brandon has a barbershop?
I always love that one.
It caught fire and everybody was talking about it. All right. Well, he also was a former teammate with Sam Darnold.
Yep.
Well, so the whatever tentacles of Josh McCown are 1 for 1.
Yeah.
And if it goes 2 for 2, it's Drake May.
Yeah.
Now, but this is subterfuge season, as you know better than anybody, man. So I'm very particular with the stories that I read and from whom, and or things to which I will listen. Now, there are some common threads that are starting to develop from some of the bigger named people that I will follow.
Sure,
the more reliable ones is the best way to put it, and it's that not every team sees these top 3 quarterbacks the same way.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, Daniels, Jaden can do this and can do this, but they're concerned about this. Caleb, not really much concerns there. Sounds like top 10 guy the minute the draft starts. So
it's not going to matter. I think he's going to Chicago, and that's going to be that.
Let's put him off to the side.
Sure.
Drake May and just this and McCarthy and the run first off. So it's subterfuge season, but let's not eliminate disgruntled employees with teams and or agents planting things.
Yep.
To benefit. Sometimes it could be, well, you know what? That little move right there might cost you $5 million. Cool. I want to play for that team. I'll make up the $5 million later.
Yeah.
So you got to start thinking about that stuff too, right?
Yep. The thing of, I want to leak something out that I don't like this guy, but I secretly do, so that we lower his draft stock and maybe we can come in and get him where we want. All of that stuff happens. And I certainly think you have to be aware of it, and you have to take a lot of what you hear with a grain of salt. But I think something you hit on there is important. You go back to the people that you trust, the people that have a track record of being reliable about these things. And not everybody's going to hit 100%, but people that more often than not have been trustworthy sources of information. I mean, that when I'm going through it this time of year, you have to do that constantly, because you can't just... I mean, I suppose you can, and people do it because it's flashy and it gets buzz, but that's not how I want to work. A lot of it for me is kind of what you said, where you sit there and say, okay, what have I had conversations with about this person in the past, and almost kind of grading your sources.
Yeah. How
much can I trust this person? What have they shown me? How do they typically play it?
Right.
And you kind of go from there.
Yeah, and just... it's there are coaches around the league. Okay, now this is like not Kevin Stefanski. Okay, dear friend of mine and somebody you know very well from your days ago. This is not Stefanski I'm talking about. But yesterday, just to ask a question about somebody in the draft, somebody with whom somebody I know is familiar. All right, so didn't send a text. Driving to the Timberwolves game. Called this individual who I've known for X amount of years. And it's not unlike people to not take the call, but then listen to the voicemail or read the transcription and then call back, if only to say hi. Well, this individual, for the first time in my relationship with him, didn't call me back. And also works with a team who could be, let's say, in an action zone when it comes to moving up with the 11 and 23. So, I mean, even little things like that, like, how are you not calling me back? You call me back every time. That's what I'm going to leave a message. I'm going to leave at 12:03 today is I'm not here to pick you for information, even though I kind of am, but you can trust me. But just to lay these crumbs out to get to that chef salad, man. It's even to that extent, people are starting to play games.
Yeah, they are. And we are still, 35, 36 days out from draft night. So there's still going to be more of that. And it probably is going to go to another level.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very curious when we get down to Orlando next week for the owners' meetings.
Yeah.
how, what people say, what people hear, and how much of that game is being played in person there too as well.
With all due respect to an elite husband and an elite father in Ben Goessling, but sometimes man, which is man or woman, just needs to kick their feet up and just like lay back in a super cool room with not a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
And even if it's just 2 days or maybe a day or maybe 4 hours. I mean, seriously, after this free agent frenzy, you were sick or whatever, got bit, whatever, months or weeks ago, of the combine, Apple Valley track.
That started the same day as free agency.
When I learned the owners' meetings were next week, I immediately thought of you.
Yeah,
like my man could use just 12 hours to stretch his legs out in a nice air conditioned hotel room.
Yeah,
and as the scribe, crafting something about a rule change. It's not bad to say you need that.
No, it will be helpful to kind of have a singular focus. Now, it also hits at the same time that I'm trying to finish up my training for the Boston Marathon.
Oh, wow.
So
when is the Boston Marathon?
April 15th.
April
so we
15th.
Throw that in there
before
too.
The draft?
It is right before the draft.
What if you're at mile 10 and Schefter breaks something that the Vikings have already committed to who and where?
Well, then we'll deal with it a couple hours later. I think at that point that question has been raised by my bosses.
Yeah. Andrew Kramer's going to be like, mother.
Yeah, pretty much.
So at the finish line, instead of I don't know if it's Gatorade, what kind of hydration you get, and did they give you the that reflective? It's almost like a blanket you put over yourself.
The heat thing.
Yeah, you're just like, give me my phone. That's all I need. You're crawling to the tent afterwards. I need to send an email to somebody.
Let's see if it's
possible.
I think you're old school enough to get this reference. I mean, you'll have that thing around you. You're like, just give me my phone. Okay, I got to look at this and I have to file this. I don't care. Is there a laptop? Does anybody have a trasher with some couplers that we can put on a payphone or any kind of phone so I could send it off to the Strib?
Yep.
The reason I bring that up, I did a podcast a couple of days ago with Don Mitchell and Jim Suhan, part of the Talk North family. Mm-hmm. And Jim and I, we've been on good terms and friendly, as acquaintances for quite some time. And so Jim, Jim and I were talking about the impact, at least for me, writing for the Pasadena Star News and the San Gabriel Valley Tribune and working on the desk, editing stories, and using a Picapole and working the agate page with all the box scores and having to call writers and be like, bro, I mean, I know I'm Cub reporter guy here at 25, stuck on the desk, making $24,000 a year. But the plan was a 20-inch story, and you just sent 29.
Yeah.
What the hell am I supposed to do with? So I had to be that guy too.
Yeah. Yep.
And Suhan, he just loved it because it just takes like you and him and others back to those days with the trasher, which was like a little computer that you would send the stories through the phones.
Yeah.
It was the garble,
the modem thing,
the modem bit.
Yeah.
And 3/4 of the times they didn't go.
Yeah.
And then you had to resend. But it's not like you could text somebody. You had to wait for your pager to look at it and see your sports editor say resend. I mean, Suhan was just loving that the other day, taking him back in the day.
It is. I mean, people refer to the newspaper, the printed newspaper, as the Daily Miracle. And there's still elements of that where it's like, how does this thing get put together every day and get to your doorstep? But man, the stories you hear from back in those days, and I didn't really live through that. I mean, I'm old enough to remember like dial-up internet at my house.
Yeah.
And I can remember life before the internet, but I never had to work in those conditions with the Trash 80 thing and the couplers. I've heard the horror stories.
Those rubber couplers, those things were aggressive.
When people talk about that, I'm just like, how did this ever get sorted out and put into logical flow and fit in a paper and get to your doorstep? I mean, that part of the miraculous part of the Daily Miracle is especially colorful and vivid when you hear those stories.
Ben Goessling at Ben Goessling via Twitter. Follow him as 9 to Noon does. He covers the Vikings and writes about football for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. His cohort Marcus Fuller joins 9 to Noon 32 minutes from now, and much more, including conversations on the owners' meetings and some of the new Vikings who have joined the Covenant within the last 4 or 5 days around the corner. You're listening to 9 to Noon on KFAN.
football feast.
Oh, please.
Wasn't that good?
I knew we was going to beat them clowns.
Hashtag Faith Radio.
You're listening to 9 to Noon.
I love it, baby. Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you. That podcast I do, Faith and Gold, the recording tomorrow with former New York Giants wide receiver David Tyree. He of the helmet catch variety.
Yeah.
We have an event called Arise with the Guys, April 20th at Grace Church in Eden Prairie. AriseWithTheGuys.com if interested in learning more. But the theme that we're creating this year, and we're going to finalize it today with the meeting at right around 4:30, is playing off the word special. And special, biblically speaking, from a Christ-centered standpoint or whatever, there's so many routes to go with the word special. But the guests are Matthew Slater,
special teams,
but maybe the best in the history of the game.
Yeah,
Slater, C.J. Ham.
Yep.
And David Tyree, who, of the helmet catch variety, but I had no idea that he was like all-pro special teamer or Pro Bowl, something like that before that.
Yep.
And so recording Faith and Goal with him tomorrow.
Cool.
And it's very nice of you to commit to co-host Faith and Goal for the next month and a half, beginning a week from Thursday. So I'll see you here at about 12:15 on Thursday. He's Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. With the owners' meetings, like, what are they like? What are the owners' meetings like?
What are the owners' meetings like? That is an open-ended question. It is, things get done by the owners. They vote on all the new rules where, overtime gets changed for the Super Bowl and all of that kind of stuff happens there. I would not say it's like the most productive time of the year for NFL business to happen. It's kind of a league convention where really rich people meet in a sunny locale to chat and catch up and probably do some business to some degree. Certainly the rule changes happen, but
so like with Indianapolis, you have mostly rich people who get together for a week to get drunk and kibitz.
Yep.
And
there's a lot of
tamper and then get back to your lives.
There's a lot of kibitzing at this as well, and it's even richer people and it's warmer, so that part is kind of nice. But the good part, I think, for somebody like me that is going down there to work and trying to get things done is people are generally a little more relaxed than they are at the combine just because the weather's nice.
That's
and it's
sweet.
After free agency. Yeah. So it tends to be a good time to catch
radio
people.
shows or,
It's less of like a throng with media than the combine is, I think. And you get access to your coach. There's that coach's breakfast. O'Connell will talk at that next Tuesday morning, I believe.
Is that like a post-Friday practice background bit, or is it like for everybody?
That's on the record, and then we may get a little bit of time just to chat casually with him as well. But, yeah, it's basically all of the NFC coaches are in a room, and it used to be like an hour, and they had breakfast, so everybody's kind of popping around asking questions over kind of lukewarm eggs and that sort of thing.
Wow. So you go table to table. Eberflus, LaFleur.
Yes.
Wow.
So last year, for example, LaFleur obviously had like the biggest throng around his table. It was 2 or 3 deep. It was people at the seats, 8 or 10 seats at the round table, and then everybody's around there gathering around because, of course, they were the topic of the offseason with what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Kevin O'Connell is the table next to LaFleur and had a very quiet little, it was me and I think Alec Lewis was there and a couple of people kind of popping in and out. They wanted to ask like the league wide, hey, what do you think about this thing? Question. And then they come and go. But it was not that big of a gathering around O'Connell last year, which I'm sure in some ways is like, hey, this means that we are not the source of grand drama right now. And that's not a bad thing. So you can kind of measure that too in terms of like who's going to have the most media members around their table is generally the person that is kind of in the center of the the firestorm around the league at the moment.
Yeah.
And certainly last year, that was the Packers.
And you're the Bison. So
Yes.
you're not going to run to the Eberflus table like a cow running from the signing storms. You're going to go right into it like the Bison because you're fearless and you persevere, right?
Yeah, that, and I'm going to go into it like the Vikings beat writer that's paid to talk to Kevin O'Connell.
And,
so there's just that
and the
too.
father who could use a little rest from the frenzy and the whole thing. It's brilliant.
And a guy that won't get his last 20-mile long run in this weekend because of all the snow, so we're probably going to have to go do that in Orlando. You can cry for me about that one.
It's in Orlando, not Arizona, right?
Orlando this year, yes.
Are you perchance visiting with cousin's dad, Don, when you're in Orlando next week? Could be a good one there.
I had not thought of that, but I could try to set that up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could be interesting. But yes, he's right in that area.
He might be in Buckhead.
He might be.
House hunting for a second or third house for him.
Yeah, could be.
When he goes up there and visits the grandkids,
A little closer. Yeah, the free babysitting for the Cousins family that comes out of this, too, it's a nice bonus.
Does that make them the center of the universe? If LaFleur was the guy that's 2-3 deep, is it the Arthur Blank contingent? Is it the Vikings contingent post Kirk? Like as I think about it, I mean,
It'll
Chiefs,
be busier with the Vikings, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious who the hot off season. Yeah, everyone loves Dan Campbell. Everyone wants a piece of that right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's not like a massive drama source or source of controversy right now. Like, be careful what you wish for. As
Patriots
I say that aloud.
table might have crickets and lukewarm eggs.
It might. I think in some years it's had crickets because they know Belichick just isn't going to play the game.
Right. Mike McDaniel's table will be packed. All the food will be warm, and he'll talk for an hour.
Yeah, people like McDaniel.
He likes to hear himself talk more than people who work at KFAN, and that includes me.
He also apparently likes when Kwesi can hear himself talk because that was at the Combine.
Yeah.
He was at the podium next to Kwesi, and he's just like bellowing to the point where it's bleeding over into those speakers, and Kwesi's just kind of shaking his head and smiling because he knows Mike McDaniel well from San Francisco, obviously. But
and
he's
I had
like,
forgotten that. When he took a little shot and he's like, "Well, Mike McDaniel's over there. He can't be any louder. He loves to hear himself talk."
Yep.
And I'm like, "Wow, that's a little bit of a shot." Yep. I thought, that's right. They were together.
Yes, they were together, and he was just kind of reacting to the Mike McDaniel show that was happening stage right for him.
All right, let's 15, 30, 45 seconds on each of these in a lickety-split fashion because the scribe's busy. Ben Goessling at Ben Goessling. Guard Dan Feeney and defensive tackle Jonah Williams. What's up with those veterans? And Shaq Griffin. What's up with those veterans joining the Covenant?
Well, I think it's to fit needs in spots where you can do it because there's probably questions with longevity in some of those cases. There are people they know in the case of Jonah Williams. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is let's address some of these needs that we know we're going to have and try to do it in ways that isn't going to hamstring us for years to come.
If they were splashing for a top 10 quarterback, and if you and I had to wager that we both would wager, yes, they are.
Yes.
Whether exponential amount or just nickels and dimes, who knows? But that's the way we would go, at least at this stage. So if they're going to splash for a top 10 quarterback, why sign Darnold? I mean, and that may be a dumb question, but wouldn't an offseason with Mullins do the trick for that role? Or maybe they've seen enough.
Yeah, I think it's possible they've seen enough. I think they may want Darnold to be the guy that kind of can get them through for the time being. They may see more in his ability to do that than Mullins. And I think they feel like there's a little bit there that is in the tank that he hasn't been able to show in the places that he's been. And there's been some inconsistency in some of those things.
Yeah.
So a little bit of, I think, is a placeholder, but why do you sign him? I think in the event you don't get the quarterback, you have to have somebody you trust for the better part of the season. I think there's a little more of that with him than Mullins.
Jaron Hall, just an outsider in this whole thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's kind of, in all likelihood, what he was going to be. I mean, they drafted him as a project. You're hoping you can develop him, probably develop him into a long-term backup. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's maybe best case scenario there. So if he becomes that, great. He's either your backup or he's a trade chip down the road. But between what they thought of him in the early stages of it and, kind of what we saw in spurts last year when he did get to play, I think that's still the trajectory we were looking at there.
Last one. How much of a chance is there Blake Brandel starts at guard for the Minnesota Vikings next year? And just crickets with Reisner still, right?
Yeah. And I think the price, the guard market was hot, so Reisner may be kind of reacting to that a little bit, and that may be what's holding that up. The money they gave Brandel, specifically the years, did make me wonder, is he going to get that chance to start? I know they like him. The fact they gave him a 3-year deal, that's not something you just do because you have to. I don't think his market would have been that hot. So, yes, I do think there's a chance that he will get an opportunity to compete for that spot. Feeney probably comes in and maybe in that mix as well. But, yes, I think the way that they signed him does put that thought in my mind as well.
Football feast.
You are elite. Safe travels to Orlando, and we'll ring you up next week if you have time, okay?
I'm sure I will between the KOC press conferences and the runs and whatever kibitzing I might be doing. We'll fit it in.
Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. News to Nord brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Bingo on Tuesday nights, but poker, blackjack, and table games all day, every day, all year round. Live racing kicking off less than 2 months from now. Looking forward to that. So get to CanterburyPark.com for all the details.
Love to throw it up to the big man coming in the backcourt. Instead, they get it to Ant on the run. He's going to cross midcourt. He bowls over a defender. He rises up for a game-time three. Came up short at the buzzer, and that would have counted. Good heavens, that was close. Anthony Edwards had a chance to tie it at the horn.
And sadly, he was unable to tie it at the horn. 115-112, the final. The Wolves lose last night at Target Center. I encourage you after the show. I'd encourage you to podcast the whole show, but Wolves assistant coach Micah Nori joined during the first hour. Good conversation there, breaking down not only what we saw last night, but a size-deficient Howell team grinding their way to the finish against a team I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. If these two teams meet in the playoffs,
agreed,
and both are fully healthy, look out Joker. But last night, Joker was the one laughing. He went off for 35 and 16. He is MVP type, so he'll do that. But the lack of Nas and the lack of Cat, the lack of Rudy, I should say, more in the recent or prescient times, that became a problem. So it came down to the final fling, as you heard the highlight from Anthony Edwards. 13 games left for the Howl. Speaking of size, Friday night, and part of that conversation with Micah Nori, I will say, grand scheme, long term, very optimistic. We're getting Rudy Gobert and Nas and company back into the mix. But in terms of Friday with Jared Allen, like coming into town, Cleveland and the Cavaliers and Garland, no Donovan Mitchell, no Spida, it sounds like, on Friday because he's got that nose thing. He'll be reevaluated in a week. But
no Evan Mobley. Max Strus has been down for them for like 2.5, 3 weeks. And Donovan Mitchell's one of the best players in the NBA. Evan Mobley is going to be one of the best bigs in the NBA if he's not already there. And Strus hits threes and plays really good perimeter defense. So the reason we turned it into Cavaliers fan line with JB Bickerstaff and Bingo Smith, Craig Elo joins us around the corner, is because we don't have many games left in the season.
Right.
And you're jostling for position. I like what you said about the Nuggets, because if you think about that the playoff series, that was last year, right?
Last year, yeah.
Right. And they played them. I mean, it could be argued of all the series, the Wolves played the Nuggets as well as anybody in the postseason last year. Now, they didn't get the money, but they match up well with Denver for whatever the reason, with the full complement. Now, Jokic, I saw a selfish side of Nikola last night that you just don't see. And what I mean is he only had 2 assists, and they both took place middle of the fourth quarter. So Jokic, the best passing big man in the NBA, and it's not close. 0 assists for the first 3.5 quarters.
Yep.
Because he's like, I mean, he started salivating at 4 p.m. when he's like, Stifle and Nas aren't going to play.
Correct.
I can do whatever I want.
And he got it all.
And he got it most. Yeah, he got most of it there. Kyle Anderson is just so sneaky with what he does, man. His body positioning, how he angles his feet and forces somebody to go left or fade away, stuff like that. You know, Kyle Anderson, as adorable as it was because of the size mismatch, did the very best he could last night on Joker.
It's funny, not bringing LFL into this, but matching, like you mentioned, Mobley's out, and Donovan Mitchell is indeed, he won't play, and he'll be back in the mix. That's bad for Doogie, good for Khan. You look at the waiver wire, and you're like, well, this is obviously a point where an Isaac Okoro would jump up. Like, you try to play those games in an injury-riddled. You see it with the Mavericks, too. And you have Luka and Irving. It seems like they're playing nice together right now, both scoring Well, when one of them's out, it's like, oh, well, clearly Tim Hardaway Jr. would have a good game or this and that.
And then it's Grant Williams getting 30.
It's never what you expect it would be. So it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah,
Trace Jackson Davis is on a scoring terror from hell and back right now for the Dubs.
Okay, you turned it into postseason fantasy basketball fan line. And the confusing nature of certain teams and patterns of what they do when certain people get hurt. I'll give you the cheap conundrum right now.
Ooh.
Because all of these guys can score. It's an awful. Portland's awful.
Yep.
Okay, but this Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, and something called Delano Blanton, who used to play for Fred down in Lincoln.
Yeah.
It's one game. Blanton will play 42 minutes with 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 blocks.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, cool. And Tybal takes the L and plays 5 minutes. Well, in the next game, Tybal's playing 18. Scoot goes 42. Blanton goes to the bench, shoots 41%, plays 13 minutes. I'm like, Chauncey, what in the hell are we doing here?
Well, I bought into some Chris Murray cat that plays for the Blazers. He had a couple of nice games while DeAndre Ayton was learning how to ice skate in his neighborhood. Took a couple of days off. Every other night, it's a completely different guy. I took a waiver wire L. I went all in on Isaiah Stewart. He's out with a hammy tonight. The whole thing. It's just whatever. LFL.
You got Isaiah Stewart?
I did, yeah.
I went for him, too.
You went for him? Yeah.
Yeah, I had the 6th spot in the waiver wire.
I need a center on Sunday.
Isaiah Stewart has a hamstring. How are you going to go after a guy with a hamstring?
I was betting that maybe he'll be good by the end of the week, but as of tonight, though, it's not looking good for Khan.
You know who's enjoying this chat?
Shake what?
Oh, yeah.
Anything else?
He absolutely loves it. Good news, bad news situation with the Wild. They win and just hammer on the Ducks last night. Lucchini with the icing on top of the cake with a goal last night to make it 4-0.
Wow.
The problem is Alex Killorn took down Jonas Brodin last night, and he got his leg caught underneath him. So Brodin, I saw this from Russo. Brodin's going to have an MRI today. Doesn't come at a good time with 4 weeks left in the regular season, Russo says. Good news is it's not the ACL, is what he's been told. So injury-marred season for the Wild. They're 3 points out of a playoff spot, so 13 games left. Grind away, win a bunch of games, and maybe get into the dance. But Brodin, a part of a blue line that's been oft-injured, a team that's been oft-injured all year. So we're all hoping that good news goes the way of Jonas when we hear from Russo at some point soon.
They have the LA Kings this evening, I believe. Kings tonight, right?
Yes, Kings. Back-to-back. You'll get to hear it. It's a late puck drop right here on the Fan.
At 3 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights. It's difficult to figure out what's up with the Vegas Golden Knights, but then again, I haven't tried to figure out what's up with the Vegas Golden Knights. But nevertheless, I mean, we were like a month and a half, 2 months ago, okay, cool, let's everybody chill.
Yep.
30 games to go and 5 back, whatever. Well, then we're like 9 back of second. It sucks. And then now they've come charging again. And John Hines, coach of the Minnesota Wild, joins 9 to noon. In fact, 24 hours from now, he'll be on the radio show about 10:45.
Absolutely. That wraps up News to Nord. I was going to hit you with this Mike Williams 1-year deal with the Jets, but we got some NFL talkers later, and I'll supply you maybe with a State of the North is what I'll call it right after we chat with our next guest.
Who needs help with their NCAA tournament brackets? Well, that would be me for sure, but if you need a little help, we have an elite college basketball mind joining us next. His name is Marcus Fuller. He covers college basketball and Ben Johnson's team for the Star Tribune. Main man Marcus around the corner to set up your NCAA tournament brackets for the big day tomorrow. KFAN and 9 to noon continue around the corner. Good morning.